Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Passionpreneur Series. I'm your host, Brandy, and I'm so excited that you're here for another episode. Today's episode is going to be a little bit different. So we're not going to focus so much on branding and marketing and the business of business, but I want to take you down a different approach. So today we have Corrin Foster of Greenleaf Book Group. Now, she works with this amazing publishing house. And Corrin, correct me, what is your correct title?
So I'm the director of marketing and branding.
Perfect. And just a little backstory, this is our second interview. The first one was absolutely amazing, and unfortunately, you will never be able to see it because I lost it. Not going to place any blame on anyone or any particular platform. Thank you, Zoom. But here we are again. And this one's going to be even better. And I'm even more prepared with some notes from our last interview and questions that came up afterward. So this actually really works out.
Good.
Totally. It's all good. So let's just jump in. I love this title. I loved our last interview. And there was just so much good information that you shared regarding, why would someone want to write a book who isn't necessarily a writer, who didn't grow up thinking, oh my God, I want to be the next Stephen King or Deepak Chopra, So let's just jump right in. Give us some backstory on you and why should we listen to you?
Sure. So as I said, I'm the director of marketing and branding at Greenleaf. We are a hybrid book publisher, which means that we are an author-funded model, and the author gets all of the pluses of being traditionally published, such as a world-class editorial and design team, distribution of their books into all major retail channels, including brick and mortar when they are back up and running, and airports. But from the self-publishing side, they really take a control and ownership over the content. They're not signing their rights away to anything. They have last say and control over what it looks like and what the final product is, with our guidance and publishing experience. So many of the authors that I work with, and I use air quotes because they didn't set out to be the next Stephen King, like you said. They are really writing a book as a way to share their expertise. So they are taking what they know from the business world and what has helped them to succeed and what they consult and speak about, putting it into book format, and then using that book as sort of a business card to grow their influence and really feed their business and act as a lead gen tool.
I'm so glad you said that, because one of my first thoughts after our last conversation was, okay, can your book be a business card for one, but also does it give you like immediate street cred? Like, oh, I wrote a book, here it is.
Yeah, it really does. When our authors and our clients publish a book, they are publicizing it everywhere. Websites get updated, speaker press kits get updated. When they're pitching themselves for speaking and consulting, they use that as a tool. For speaking, as an example, they may send that book to conference organizers as an example of the type of content that they're covering, so that those organizers have something tangible to review and look at, and then work with the author and the expert to build a speech that's specific to the audience that they're going to be talking to.
Oh, I love that. So, aside from the obvious income you get from selling of the book, if that is what you choose to do with it, are there other income streams that can come from then writing a book and having it published that might not have been open to you before?
Yeah, absolutely. And that is the primary reason why our authors are publishing books. The reality of the royalties on publishing a book, unless you're Stephen King, again, most people are not making money as a published writer. What they are making money on is that book ending up into a potential client's hand and them engaging you for a $20,000 consulting contract, or bringing you in to speak for $5,000 and you do that twice a month throughout the year. That's how they're monetizing. And with our model, remember that the authors own the content. So if they wanted to do online learning modules, or they wanted to do workshops, or they wanted to do train the trainers, they have control over all that content and are able to do that. I have quite a few authors who either publish traditionally with maybe a first book and have come to us because they said, I was really stuck on how I could monetize that content once I signed those rights over to a traditional publisher. And there's a publishing model for everyone, whether it's traditional or hybrid or self-publishing. It's just really important that an author and an expert think long-term about what they want to do with that content and decide if that option is going to let them reach those goals.
Awesome. So I know you predominantly work with business owners and strictly produce business books, correct?
Correct. We excuse me for a second.
Yeah, of course.
Yes, so we are predominantly and this is going to keep on now.
Oh no. Take some water. Yeah, do what you got to do.
Okay, so we are predominantly a nonfiction business, leadership, finance publisher. We do publish nonfiction. We publish fiction. We publish fiction, children's books, also health and wellness. Really, we are a best fit for someone who has larger business goals. So they're using that book again as a tool. Certainly, we do have authors that want to be authors and are writers more in the literary space, but primarily it is business.
Oh, wow. Okay. And then again, with your model being the hybrid model, why would someone pick that over self-publishing when they would still have all the rights?
Yeah, so with self-publishing, you are then the person responsible for making sure that you have the best editor that you can get, that you find a book designer that can bring your vision to life, that you have a marketing and a branding team that can bring that to life for you. So working with a hybrid publisher, and specifically my team at Greenleaf, you get all of that in one spot. Not only do we have all of that expertise, but all of those teams are working together. So things that are discovered on the branding side are conveyed to the editor to make it into the content of the book, and vice versa. And the cover design, the same designers are doing the ads and creative content for our authors as well. So it's really a one-stop shop and making sure that an author has that support that they need. When you go down the self-publishing route, that can be really daunting. You don't know if that, all the time, if that's the editor that's a good match for your content, or if you work with a designer, are they really skilled in book design, which is a very specific field of design. So it helps from a project management standpoint as well. And I think you get a much better quality of book.
Oh, I love that. The fact that you instantly get a team.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's amazing. I mean, there's so many, just from an entrepreneur standpoint, you're by yourself for the most part. You have this idea, you go into business, and you're hoping at some point you can afford to hire an assistant, a VA. But if you go this route, you have a team, you have a family around you, and you're all rooting for the same goal, which is so
yeah,
great.
and we work with our authors long term. They're not in and out of an assembly line. There are some authors, I've been at Greenleaf for 9 years now, and there are literally authors that I have been marketing their book for 9 years straight, because the marketing is working, because it's a lead gen for them, because books are selling. We continue to take advantage of the latest in book marketing and branding for them, and it's an investment that returns itself in clients and speaking and consulting.
And this is the same book, not their second, third book.
Sometimes it's the same book. Sometimes they come back to us for multiple books. If something is your expertise, while there may be updates, that content is usually pretty evergreen. You're not on a time crunch a lot of the time to make sure that it gets out, it gets promoted, and then the content is no longer relevant. It's usually the basis of what you do for a living. And you can do updates and new editions of it, but the core is still there.
Wow. Oh, that's really cool. I love that, the whole relationship that you build with your writers.
Yeah.
So can you take us on, I'm sure it's a lengthy process. This is not done in a few weeks for sure. But can you take us on maybe the first few steps or the path from they walk into your office, and they have this idea. Where do you guys go from there? How do you get started?
So our clients come to us at all different phases of the book writing process. Some of them will come to us with a completed manuscript that's ready to go through an editorial proofing and start the production process. Others will come to us with just an idea or a concept, and they can work with an editor to do a developmental edit on the book, or they can even work with a ghostwriter to help them get those thoughts down. Like we mentioned, they're not authors in the traditional sense a lot of the time. They maybe end up being very good writers and enjoy the process, but they're really business people who have advice and resources to give to others, and they just need help getting that on paper. From there, my branding team will typically work with an author very early in the process, because we're going to work with them to make sure that the book is aligned with their business's mission and vision. We're also going to work with them on where they are positioned in the marketplace, not only the book itself, but where are they as an expert positioned? Who are their peers in the space? How can they work together? Where are there opportunities for them? And then from there, it really depends on the rest of the production process. Book publishing is a slow process. And as a hybrid publisher, we really do benefit from speed to market. So we're one of the quickest out there. But generally, it's going to take at least 6 to 9 months to get a book in the marketplace. And a lot of that is to do with the retailers themselves. Barnes and Noble, they need a 9-month time period for you to pitch the book to their buyers and it to get funded and brought into stores. So some of it is just how the industry works. I will say though, there are different options. Print on demand, which is generally associated with self-publishing, is a great way to get a book on the market very, very quickly, because you're not pitching it to bookstores. You're making it available digitally. And then you can always pitch the indie bookstores or your local bookstores on your book after that.
So when you mentioned print on demand, that's different than ebooks?
Yeah, that's different than ebooks, although they usually go hand in hand. Ebooks now are, if you're talking about a companion piece to a print book, it's just standard. Every book now comes out with an ebook counterpart. It's great for accessibility, making sure that it gets into libraries, that it appeals to different reading preferences, but it's also a great way on Amazon to control more real estate and give your book a better chance of being discovered, to have multiple formats of the book. But with print on demand, some of those books, you would never know that there are not books sitting in the warehouse. Literally, when a consumer purchases the book, an order goes into a printing machine and the book gets printed and bound and set as a one-off. That's print on demand. Yeah, and most people would never know that that was not a, printed on a large press book.
Okay, now that seems really expensive.
There is a different royalty structure in that, and there's different limitations. You're not typically going to get a hardcover book on print on demand. They're going to be soft cover. There may be color restrictions or page count restrictions, things like that. But the finished product is really good quality.
I love that. Oh my gosh. Okay. So one of the things that really struck me in our last conversation, because again, a lot of this series is really helping entrepreneurs, business owners figure out what they're missing in their business. And sometimes it just comes back to knowing their customer, really knowing how to communicate to them and being in their shoes and not speaking to them through yourself. You know what I mean? Like what you would want to hear. And one thing that really blew me away was how, again, thinking about your mission, your vision, your values, all of that is so important, even when you're writing the book, working with your team. So the question I ask is, say you have someone who's who is really passionate and has this book idea, and they really want to make it happen in order to grow their business, but they're still unclear on those parts. Is that something your team can really dive into and work with them, or would they have to do that outside of you guys and come back with it?
So that's what a portion of my team does. It is the branding strategy for authors and experts. So it's really sitting down with them and deciding and doing the research as to, what are they offering people? What change does their content make in the world? What pain point are they addressing? And we spend a lot of time doing consumer profiles, uh, really diving into who the target reader is, where do they live, what do they do for a living, what is their educational background, do they have children, are they in urban or suburban areas, those finite or those really nuanced part of a profile can really help you create content for that person, and it can help you think to what problem they have and how you can help them solve it. And then further down a line from the advertising and marketing standpoint, if I know what my target audience likes to read or what their educational level is, I can then go and secure advertising places that have a similar demographic. So it really helps not only on content creation, but also content promotion.
Oh, that's so good. Okay.
And that's something where after we do that research, we present it in a way where it can be kind of printed out and tacked to the wall. I have many authors who, as they're writing, have those peer profiles in front of them. We've gone through this exercise with Greenleaf Book Group as a company. So I have Greenleaf's mission and vision and who our target and ideal authors are in front of me to reference when I'm talking about the company. So it's something you can use throughout the life of your brand.
I love that. And then what change does your content bring to the world? That's so cool.
Yeah. That's a big question that we ask. And, it sounds wooey, but it gets to the heart of what an author or expert's goal is besides, I want to sell books. That's not the reality for a lot of authors, but it really resonates if they know that what they've created works towards that change and can impact the people who are buying the book. So it's a really great touch point to have for your brand.
So just really quickly on this topic, I've talked with a few writers, mainly business people who have written books, and initially one of their biggest struggles was just like the publisher or the book houses. They didn't want their book unless they had a certain, say, follower count on Instagram or a certain social, preference or appearance out there. How much of that is needed before you even go to launch?
It's definitely helpful. It's something that we look at when we're evaluating the marketability of the book. We're thinking about who is going to buy this book and how big is that market for the book. If an author, contacts us and says, I have an email list of 20,000 people who are opening my emails at this rate, I have a social media following of this size with this engagement, that does give us a good indication of what kind of market feedback we'll get for the books. It's also helpful when our distribution team is presenting books to book buyers. They can give them context around who would be coming into their store and buying the book. But the flip side of that is, if I do the branding work, if I spend the time figuring out who the target reader is, I can build that audience alongside of building the book. Again, the content is evergreen. So I can do those things side by side. Now, my expectations about how many books I'm going to sell may need to be adjusted, but there's no reason why you can't do those two things together: publish the book and grow your platform.
Oh, I love that. So sometimes if they're starting out and they really are a newbie or an unknown, the first launch may not be, whatever their big ideal is. But the second and third could be because you've built a real audience who wants that material.
Absolutely. And I am big on the concept of micro influencers, both as an expert having that influence yourself and also as a book promoter partnering with those people, because the influencers who are considered micro influencers, maybe 100,000 followers or less, their followers tend to be really highly engaged.
Yes.
They're clicking links, they're making purchases, they're giving feedback, they're having conversations. I would much rather an author have that following than come to me with 1 million people and I look at who's following them and what their engagement rates are, and it's going to give them a false sense of how many books are actually going to sell.
Oh, so true. So true. And I mean, and then that goes across the board for anything you're selling.
Yeah, absolutely.
So true. Okay, so I'm thinking there's probably a handful of writers out there who've already written their book and they're probably kicking themselves, wishing they'd known about you before. What are some tips or ideas professionally that you could share to help them make those sales or get it out there, because they might be working by themselves?
Yeah. The biggest one is to set realistic goals and chip away at it. You can't do everything at once, but if you set manageable goals and expectations, you can reach out to 3 podcasters a week to pitch yourself as a guest. You can send 1 book to a reviewer every week. And as you chip away at those things, you start to get that visibility and discoverability for your content, and you start to grow. And I personally think not only are you growing, but you're growing based on real relationships. So it's a much more fruitful kind of growth.
That's so good. Would you ever suggest for someone perhaps to, like, the book isn't ready, right? It may not even be written yet, but to go out and start talking about it as if it is, just to see what the response is, to know if it's even the right direction to go?
So I would be a little sneakier about it. I would, having a blog or having a social media presence or a newsletter is a really great way to test content. You can start writing about the concept you eventually want to write a book on, see what kind of feedback you get as you release content. Is there something that gets shared more than other pieces? Is there a blog post that gets more comments and feedback than any other? It will give you a nice sense of direction and maybe where you have knowledge that other people don't, and you should dive a little deeper into that area.
I love it. So I just read an article right before our call too that said, it was so funny, Audible and podcast listenership is down right now because of quarantine and everything, but book sales are up. And it's because a lot of people are now finally tackling their bucket list.
Yeah.
I know personally on my nightstand, I have about 10 books that I've been saying I'm going to read in like the next, I don't know, 2 or 3 months. But how has this affected your business?
Yeah, so that's a really interesting point. Nielsen BookScan is the service that tracks sales, and they report to us genre trends. You're probably familiar with Nielsen because they do the TV ratings. Well, they also do book ratings and trends as well. So there is an uptick in entrepreneurship titles and leadership titles because people are taking the time to pursue those passions, and they're also looking for resources to make sure their businesses survive. So those titles are doing really well. Health and wellness titles are doing really well as people, our lifestyle is changing. We have, in some cases, our commute now turns into time that we can exercise or meal prep, things like that. And then there's been a surge in just pure fiction and entertainment titles as people try to distract themselves. Interestingly, on the podcast side, don't stop pitching yourself for a podcast. Certainly, podcasts are experiencing a backlog of guests. So it may take time, but when you pitch yourself and your expertise, don't connect it to the pandemic and COVID. There's enough content out there about that already, and people are getting fatigued. So a good way to pitch yourself now, after we've been in this for 3 months, is kind of just like a distraction. What can you bring that they're not hearing elsewhere? What can you discuss that isn't such doom and gloom, and gives them a chance to kind of step away from the content they're already being inundated with?
I love that. I just had an interview with a branding expert, and her whole thing right now, like her business has completely shifted. And so she's taking her clients on this path now of like, what is your business going to look like after all of this? Let's start having that conversation. What new things are you coming up with? Are you inventing, and getting people thinking about, oh, I have this to look forward to instead of what they're currently having to deal with.
Yeah. And, in the publishing industry, we've been pretty lucky as far as promotion goes. So much of book sales happens online to begin with, that much of our marketing was digitally focused from the start. So we're not seeing a lot of changes there. But where we are seeing our clients struggle is the speaking engagements and the workshops that they were doing. How do they move that to a digital environment? Or how do they give their readers and their audience members that value when they can't spend that time with them? Because again, that's how they're monetizing. That's the biggest chunk of how they're monetizing their content. So there's been a lot of discussion around that.
Well, I can definitely say online series and summits are great, really.
I mean, yeah, there's never going to be a dip in the need for content. It is knowing what your audience wants, and again, taking what you know and solving a pain point for them, solve a problem for them, and people will come.
I love it. So that just leads me beautifully into my next reveal. Speaking of providing your audience with what they need and what they want, can you tell us a little bit about this beauty?
I can. So Ideas, Influence, and Income was written by Greenleaf's CEO, Tanya Hall. It essentially takes everything she knows about branding and publishing and monetizing your ideas and putting them into one neat little package. And she has graciously offered the book to everyone for free. So if you go to ideasinfluenceandincome.com/free book, just turn over your email address and you will get a PDF of the entire book.
It's so awesome. We're so grateful for that. And in case you did miss that, it will be in the email that you'll receive with this interview. All of the information, how to access it, and of course, stay in touch with Corrin. If you have any questions and want to stalk her on Twitter and Instagram. I just want to know, what books are you reading right now?
Oh my goodness. I just finished The Knockout Queen by Ruthie Thorpe. I'm a big fiction reader because in my day job, I'm all nonfiction. So I need to take a break. And that was a very excellent book. I enjoyed that one.
So I'm curious too, and I thought about this after our last interview. How quickly can you get through a book?
I am actually a pretty slow reader, but I read a lot. I read, every day, not only for work, but I usually read for at least an hour for pleasure every day. It's how I wind down. I am a textbook introvert where I need my away time to recharge. So if I spend an hour a day, I can make it through a book a week.
Are you serious?
Yeah, I usually read between 50 and 100 books a year, depending on like travel schedules and length of books and things like that. I really love books.
I'm way behind. It's so sad. I'm hand to God, I am an Audibles queen. I can get through an Audibles I can do like probably 3 in a week. Give me a book and I'm gonna need at least a month.
No judgment from me on what format a book needs to be to really reach somebody, Kindle, ebook, audiobook, whatever it needs to be. Reading is reading to me.
I love it. Oh my gosh, Corrin, you're amazing.
Thank you.
You're just so full of information, good information that, again, things that I hadn't even thought about from a writing perspective or putting out a book, like it never occurred to me that that was really an option for me. And since our last interview, it's just like, oh, this would be a great idea. Oh, this could be a good topic.
Good. I like to get all those creative juices flowing.
Yes. So I hope, and actually I know that you have done the exact same thing for our audience. So again, thank you for your time again. Any final thoughts or words of wisdom you want to leave us with?
You know, that anyone can really get their ideas out there with some time and thoughtfulness. What you have to say is important to someone, and it can help someone. So really focus on what you can offer others, and it usually comes back to you tenfold.
I love that. Okay, final question. And you already know what it is. Have you found your passion?
You know, it sounds so cliche, but books are my passion. Ever since I was young, I was the kid scrounging up money to get to the Scholastic book fair.
Oh,
And
yes, I remember those.
it
Yes.
was just kind of serendipitous that I took a marketing track and learned how to use social media at the right time. And it merged with helping authors. So I am one of the lucky people that never dreads going to work or opening my email because it all goes back to a book.
I love that. Oh, that's beautiful. Perfect. All right, you guys, thank you so much for tuning in to another episode. I hope you found as much value out of this as I did, and more importantly, that you take the information, you use it, you share it, and you help enrich someone else. Corrin, thank you so much for your time. Again, I love you to pieces. I haven't met you yet in person, but I just want to give you a hug.
It's my pleasure. This has been so much fun.
You're amazing. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful rest of your day. I'm not even sure what time it is there or evening, but we will definitely be in touch. And you're going to be publishing my book one of these days.
I'm looking forward to it.
And you guys, make sure you go online, click the link below, and get your copy. You do not want to be without this. Have a great day, you guys. Corrin, I'll see you soon.
Thank you. Bye.